Would you be seated and listen carefully to every word I have to utter? I'm sure you've all heard about the Good Samaritan before, and that hundreds of sermons have been preached on it, and I can't really hope to do anything new. However, I'll start with a quiz. How many characters are in the story of the Good Samaritan? Not counting Jesus and the lawyer. Anyone guess? 7. Okay, and we're going to make this parable now into a drama, a little play. And you could be one or the other. Who wants to be the donkey? Well, let's think of this, though, not because we're just interested in this story, but in how it applies to us. Of these 7 characters that I'll mention, I think every one of them is in you and you and you and me and everyone else. A little bit of each one of these we find within ourselves, or we have. First of all, there's a man going on a journey. He's going from Jerusalem to Jericho. It's a pretty rough road, I understand, going down about 6,000 feet in altitude as it goes on. Here is someone then taking a journey. We don't know why or anything else, but he is going somewhere, just as we are all going somewhere, and we don't know how dangerous or how easy the path ahead of us is. So we take a bit of a risk, and that's what we all do every day of our lives. But then he falls into the hands of robbers. This is where my theory of 7 collapses, because there's more than one robber, I assume, but we'll just assume there's one. However, these robbers are waiting for an innocent man to take advantage of him. How many of us can say we have never, ever taken advantage of another person? I know we haven't, I hope, gone out and beaten someone up and stolen their wallet or their credit cards or their cellular phones or whatever. We haven't done that, but think about it in our lives, and we've all here had plenty of life. Have we ever taken advantage of someone, even subconsciously? Let us think upon that sometimes, you and I. But here, of course, in the story, the man is stripped and left for dead. And we haven't done that, but we have taken advantage, I think. Now comes down the priest. He should really, really, really know better, right? He's a Jewish priest. He's studied the Torah. He knows about loving your neighbor as yourself. He knows all of God's commandments to love others. But what does he do? He walks right by. He's in a hurry. He's got somewhere to go. And he can't mess with this poor person over there in the ditch. How many of us have ever done that, I wonder? Been too much in a hurry to listen to someone who really needed it. I had a friend who had been in the Marines years ago, and he was in boot camp, and there was a whole bunch of them. And one night they were on liberty, about to go out and enjoy the town, and they were all dressed up to do that, except for one recruit. And he asked my friend, a neighbor of years ago, could you just stay and talk a while? I don't want to go out. And my friend said, well, no, look, we're all dressed up. We're going out right now. But tell you what, as soon as I get back, a few hours from now, I'll come talk with you, okay? Okay. But when they all got back, he was hanging from the beam. He had committed suicide. And my friend felt guilty about that forevermore. That doesn't normally happen to most of us, but how many of us could have stopped to help when we didn't? We were in a hurry. Same thing with the Levite. He should have known a lot better too. Here he is, trained to take part in the rituals of the temple and so on. Certainly he knows that you should love your neighbor, but no, he's in too much of a hurry too. And so he passes by. Then comes this Samaritan, a man who in the context of the New Testament and the Jewish culture is despised. The last person you would want around, even to help you. But the man lying in the ditch has no voice, no option. And the Samaritan, scumbag as he was in the eyes of so many in the culture, he stops and helps and lifts that man up. He is another important, the most central important person in this story. He helps the man. And notice what he does. He bandages him up. He does all he can right there in the side of the road where there's not much to help with, and puts him on. And it's interesting here, the next character in our translation, unfortunately, it's called his animal. He put him on his own animal. We don't really know, do we? Was it a horse, a donkey, an elephant, a giraffe? Just an animal. Other interpretations of the Bible, by the way, normally say donkey. And if you've looked at medieval art or any of the great Renaissance painters who depict this act of the Samaritan being put on, the Samaritan putting the poor man on his animal, it's usually a donkey that's depicted. Although I have seen one or two paintings where it was a horse, a kind of dilapidated, poor old pony. Never mind, the animal, how many of us sometimes are that donkey? I hope we are, many times, carrying someone along. Not questioning them, not worrying about them, just helping them, being there to help them, to let them ride through this terrible situation, to help and health. Any more characters? Of course there are. There's the innkeeper. We neglect him a lot, but think of him. Here comes the Samaritan, who is kind of a questionable character probably in the eyes of the innkeeper, with a half-dead man on his donkey, naked, and yet he takes him in. He believes the Samaritan when he says, "Look after him now, and I will come back and pay you what is due to you after your care." And the innkeeper, a good and trusting and loving person, says, "Yes, I will." And he leaves him there. And so we have our 7 characters, 7 plus, given that it's probably more than one robber. Okay, let's apply every one of these to our own lives. Not as extreme, I know, because I doubt whether any of you are going to go out and rob someone and leave them dying at the side of the road. Of course not. But a little thing can sometimes make that other person feel that they've been injured, hurt, just by a careless word, a careless action, a careless laugh, a careless attitude. How many of us have ever done that and left someone metaphorically lying at the side of the road injured? How many of us, of course, have not robbed someone physically, I hope, but have taken something from someone that we shouldn't have and left them hurting and, in a sense, emotionally bleeding? And how many of us have passed by when we should have stopped and helped? As my Marine Corps recruit friend, although I don't know if we could blame him, he didn't know what was going on in the mind of that other Marine recruit, but if only he had stayed. And he'll live with that forevermore, of course. And the innkeeper. How many of us are willing to take someone on faith and invest in something like the cost of looking after that poor, bedraggled, injured man, and take on faith his care and believe someone else who will later on make it all even? I think a little bit of every one of these, including the donkey. How many of you think in this life you have been the donkey for someone or another? I think we all have, maybe without knowing it. We've helped whether we wanted to or not. That donkey didn't have any choice, but we helped and we did the proper thing. So there is the Good Samaritan's scenario, if you like. And all of it thinking about every one of these characters and then thinking of ourselves. Let's think of the main point. Go and do likewise. Amen.